Hello, everybody. This is Mike here, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. So things went a little bit different tonight. Mr. Dennis Wynn was going to host and co-host with Gypsy Jules. He's having computer issues, so you're stuck with me tonight. Sorry. But we still have Gypsy, so that saves the show. And we also have a wonderful guest that I am really looking forward to. Tonight's guest is David Canterbury. I hope I said that right. I meant to ask him before the show. He's a best-selling author, co-owner of Pathfinder School LLC, co-owner of Self-Reliance Outfitters. You probably know him best from the television shows he's co-starred in, Dual Survival and Dirty Rotten Survival. Before we get into that, and David, I bet David doesn't know about this, and he'll have to check him out. If you want the best American-made digging tools made, period, they use American-made steel. Each tool is individually heat-treated by George Leshy himself. Check out PredatorTools.com. They're a really small business. It's George, his wife, and their son, and I believe daughter-in-law. And they are the best tools, hands down. Everything is American made. Even their Model 85 hand digger has a compass in it and stuff. All the sheaths are American made using American made rivets. PredatorTools.com, or you can call Pam at 856-455-3790. That's PredatorTools.com. Don't forget, check out allmetalmode.com. I've got articles there. We have a new forum. I know forums are old school. I'm just tired of social media. I love social media, don't get me wrong, but a forum really encourages real conversations about metal detectors and metal detecting. So we created a forum. Joanna just totally fought me on it, Gypsy. And she's like, Mike, they're old news. And I'm like, I don't care. I miss them. Make me a forum. So she did. And it's doing all right. We just started it. I mean, I'm not saying we got a bunch of people, but we got some good conversations going and stuff. So if you're interested, check it out. Go to allmetalmode.com. Click on the forum. There's in navigation, there's forum, and it'll take you right there. Join us. We would love it. Dirt Digest Magazine. It's a free online magazine, metal detecting. Of course, I'm the editor. This month, there's a great article by Gypsy on the Garrett Apex. If you want to take, well, we kind of co-did that together. How would you say that, Gypsy? I'm not sure.
I would say it was more of an interview.
Yeah, interview. You helped me a lot and filled in some blanks.
Kind of a Q&A is what it was.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But she answers some questions on the Apex and all that. So check it out. That's dirtdigestmagazine.com. Again, it is a free online magazine. You can download it. You can flip through it right online, however you want to do it. One thing I want to do tonight, something that's really been on my mind lately. I love metal detecting. Any of our listeners know that I just love metal detecting. I live it. It's my life. But I've just, this week I've really thought about how far we've come and what's going on. And I have to thank Gypsy Jules, Amanda Digger DeGaz. They do the Monday night show. Dorian Cook co-hosts with me on Tuesday nights. That guy is knowledgeable on so many subjects and just everything. Dennis Wynn fills in for us all the time. I think he's going to join the team permanently. And then Joanna, I'm going to mess this up. She's going to hate me. Joanna Jana Lesnicka. I'm not sure I've never been able to say her name right. She does all of our website stuff. She's made it grow incredibly and do good things. And thank you all for helping out and being part of the team. I really appreciate it. It's really been on my mind lately. So without any further ado, let's jump into the show. And I'm going to let Gypsy take over for a few minutes and get us off and started.
All right. Well, I'm excited about this evening. David, we want to go ahead and just welcome you into the show tonight. And it is Canterbury?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's how you say it. I don't know if you go by Dave or David. I apologize.
Supper.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So I go by anything but late for supper.
I hear you there.
We haven't missed out at all, have we, Gypsy?
No, not at all, especially during COVID. I think I've gained a lot of weight, so we won't go there anymore. But I have to say, David, just kind of embarrassing. When they first told me that you were going to be on here, and they said, "Yeah, he was on this survival show. I know you've probably heard of him," and I was like, I'm so bad with names. I can't ever remember names. And then my son, I have two boys, and my oldest son is 21 now, about to be 22, and he loves the TV survival shows. And I have always had to go and watch these shows with him because he's so into the survival stuff. And I had actually tried to encourage him into doing some type of survival, kind of like what you do, but more of like tours where you take people into remote areas and camp out with them and show them survival skills and stuff. But he is very introverted and shy. He doesn't quite have your personality, but when I finally put two and two together and I pulled it up and I'm like, oh, I've watched some of those survival shows. So if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, David, and then how you got into the survival shows, and then we'll delve on into how you got into metal detecting?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but it's not. I'll shorten it up as best as I can. It really just started off as something that I was doing. I was a hunting guide, and I was doing some 18th century reenacting and some primitive archery stuff. And I was practicing skills one day, and my brother-in-law asked me if I'd ever made a YouTube video. This is back in 2007. And I said, I don't even know what YouTube is. And of course, YouTube was brand new in 2007. And so he talked me into making my first YouTube video, which I believe was something about napping arrowheads at that point. And one thing kind of led to another. And again, YouTube was kind of in its infancy back then. And Discovery Channel called me and asked me if I would like to do a survival show. And I said, sure. And one thing led to another. And I did that show. And then I did another show. And then I did a show for a private channel called Hunt Channel. I did a Pathfinder Outdoor Journal for them. And that kind of led into, I had started my school during the time prior to going on television, then continued that on, and started my business prior to going on television, continued that on. And then so when I got through with all of that, it gave me more time to concentrate on writing books and doing a better job of teaching at my school and training better instructors and hiring more instructors. And so now we train probably 400 or 500 people a year. And we train everybody from civilians to law enforcement to the U.S. military.
Wow, that's really cool.
Wow.
Hey, guys, real quick, cool. I apologize. Something I wanted to say in the beginning that I forgot. If you're tuning in live, you can join us in chat. At the bottom of the bar that came up when you started listening, there's looks like a little cloud, little chat bubble. You click on that. You can log in through Facebook. It takes seconds. If you'd like to join us in chat, we can open it up at the end of the show for questions. Please wait until the end of the show. We'll let you know when. But come in, join us in chat, and if you have questions or anything like that, you're more than welcome to ask when we get towards the end of the show. One other thing I wanted to say, Gypsy, you were talking about how your son knew him. I'll be real honest with you. If it's not Boss Baby, we don't watch TV around here. My 2-year-old runs the TV now, and I had not heard of David. my brother actually sent me a message and he said, "Hey, I'm a big fan of this guy. He's been doing showing a lot of metal detecting pictures and stuff like that." He said you should reach out to him. And he had told me about you, but honestly, I had never seen anything. And something I want to say that's been really kind of neat to me, everybody I've talked to about the show that we're doing this week and stuff, everybody has said, "Oh, I know who he is. He comes across as such a nice guy." And all I've said to everybody is, we've had some phone conversations. We've talked back and forth through Messenger. Down to earth, nicest guy you could ever meet. And so you really have that. I think that's neat that you've been on TV shows. You're a best-selling author. You're so well known, but yet it's like talking to, one of my buddies when we talk on the phone. So I want to say anybody listening in that gets that, it's true. He's just a down-to-earth, nice guy.
Man, I don't know what to say to that.
All right, you don't got to say nothing. What's next, Gypsy?
Well, I'm sure, we can open up questions in a little bit in chat, but I'm sure you have a few questions for David. And one of my questions is, okay, you kind of explained how you got into the TV part of it, and it started with a YouTube channel, and I've kind of basically did the same thing. I started my YouTube channel just to share what my passion for metal detecting. I've been doing it now about 22 years, same time as Mike. And Mike and I, Dennis, if we would have got a chance to have him on tonight, he's what? How many years has Dennis been detecting?
40 some years. And I want to tell a really quick funny story about Dennis. And the story hasn't changed. When him and I first started talking, he told me he's a cache hunter as well. And he's got a GPR, which is several thousand. Oh, let's just, we won't get into it. That guy has a chunk of money wrapped up in stuff to find a cache. Okay. Now keep in mind, I think Dennis is 67, I believe.
Yeah,
he's been metal detecting since before I was born. I'm 44. And my next question, after he was telling me all the cool stuff he has to find caches, now he's a big time detectorist as well. I said, "Ooh, cool. Have you ever found a cache?" No, Mike. No, I've never found a cache. No.
Liar.
Now, those old timers will never tell you. And now we are very good friends, and I still get that same story. And I figure one day if he tells me, "Yep, found a cache," he'll really like me, But I love those old timers. He's really got me convinced that there's a lot of caches out there, and he's really got me pointed in that direction. And come fall, we're going to go look for some and I'm excited. But yeah, he's a very, very neat guy, a lot of experience. And I'll say, even though Gypsy and I roughly have the same amount of time metal detecting, she blows me away. She is just a knowledgeable heck of a detectorist, and it's amazing to go out with you. It is, because I tell people the first time we detected together, it's getting dark and I'm back in the truck soaking wet. It's 100-degree day. And you hear her voice, David. You hear what a sweet little voice she's got. And she comes back, she walks back, she goes, "Do you mind if I detect a little bit longer?" And I'm like, I don't know how she's going to. She turns the headlights on in the truck, and I'm sitting in the truck like a little girl while she's out detecting. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. I'm spent. I'm done. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Dave, the truth is he's scared of snakes. So I can't get him to come detect with me in the rivers over here. And just a little quick tidbit, I had looked up one of the episodes a while ago. I just watched a snippet of it, and it's y'all skinning that python. And
Yeah, that
I'm
was
sure
important.
Mike,
I remember that.
yeah, I'm sure Mike would just love that.
No
No,
thanks.
no
No thanks.
pythons around here, but plenty of rattlesnakes. I'll tell you that. But but Dave, so
How'd you
what was
get
I
into?
getting
I
at a
gotta
while
ask.
ago?
How'd you get into metal detecting? When did that start? And how'd that happen?
So here's the deal with this whole thing, okay? I'm glad that I can finally be the dumb guy in the room, because I haven't been metal detecting very long at all, other than cheapy metal detectors when I was a kid.
Okay.
And so this is kind of like survival and bushcraft and all of that stuff. That's how I make my living.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of my hobby. This metal detecting is kind of my hobby, above board with, above my living and all of that. But at the same time, I like to do anything that I can do that I have a passion for. I like to be able to pass that on to other people. So if I can pass this hobby on to kids and people who don't have the opportunity to get outside, the problem with a lot of the stuff that I do and a lot of the stuff that I teach is you have to be in pretty damn good shape, in all honesty, to even come and take one of my courses, because they're pretty difficult. But you don't really have to be in that great shape to metal detect. I mean,
Right.
you can go to a park, or no, I'm just being honest. You can go to a park, or you can, there's a lot of places you could go swing for an hour and sit back in your car or whatever you want to do. And so there's an audience out there for that. And at the same time, especially now with the whole COVID thing, then social distancing, it's something you can do by yourself.
Yes.
So
Right.
It's something, not only do you not have to exert a lot of physical energy into if you don't want to, it's also something that you can do by yourself, that you can do away from other people, and you can enjoy the outdoors. And to me, enjoying the outdoors is really the end goal of everything. And then when you roll into that, the fact that I'm a huge history fan,
Right.
and so you're digging up history out of the ground, and you can relate that to historical events and things wherever you're detecting. Some of that's what I'm doing right now. I have a village, for lack of a better term. It only has about 600 people in it now. It used to have 2,500, but it's an old coal mining town, and it's now a village. And I'm doing a lot of detecting in that town and around the churches and the old buildings and things around that town. I'm finding a lot of things that are historically relevant to the area, and putting that story together and being able to convey that to people on social media and on YouTube and things like that is kind of what I'm after, because I've been a lot like Gypsy with YouTube. It's always been a way for me to pass on things that I like to do and things that I think other people would enjoy. And the whole monetary thing, of the channel being monetized, being a YouTube partner and having 500,000 subscribers, that stuff all just came. It wasn't ever meant to be that way. I didn't start my channel like a lot of people nowadays start YouTube channels hoping they're going to make a bunch of money off of it. I never had an inkling of making a dime off of YouTube when I started doing it in 2007, because you couldn't even make any money off of it back then, hardly. In fact, I was making very little money on YouTube at all for probably the first 5, 6, 7 years I was doing YouTube. It just came by itself, and it's really a matter of attrition. You've been on YouTube for 10 plus years making videos. Sooner or later, you're going to make some money. It's like metal detecting. You dig enough holes, sooner or later, you're going to find something.
Right. Yeah, I've only had my channel 3.5 years now, and never did I expect it to lead to where it is now.
Hey, Gypsy, real quick, why don't you tell him why you started your channel? I think it's a really cool story.
Which part? Which version? You talking about when I was riding in the car?
Riding in the car?
Because of my cancer?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
all right.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Quick, I'll try to make this quick because this show's about you, David. So about 4 years ago now. I guess it's about 4 years. Yeah, about a little over 4.5 years now. Boy, time's flying. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, renal cell carcinoma, and they removed my right kidney. And then about 6 months later, they did a scan and found more cancer in my right. And I've always been outdoors, love the outdoors, love, metal detecting, love anything sports, etc. I always thought of myself as a very healthy person. And then, anyway, then come to find out I have cancer, and then I ended up losing my right kidney. Then 6 months later, they found cancer over in my lymph nodes where my kidney used to be. And at that point, the doctor said, you have about 5 to 10 years expected life to live at that point. And, you get this news with the doctor and you're like, oh my goodness, you're like, never thought I'd hear those words. And so not long after that, my doctor met with a team of doctors and ended up doing an emergency surgery where they cut me open and went in there and took all that connective tissue and the rest of the cancer out. And, knock on wood, I've been cancer-free since then. But at that point in my life, I decided I had just finally recovered from that surgery, and I was had got to detect for the first time. We were visiting some family in Kansas, and got to metal detect at this old 1900 Victorian house and found some really cool stuff. And I was riding back home in the car, and then all of a sudden it was almost as if this voice had said, start a YouTube channel. I don't know. It's like this thing popped in my head all of a sudden. And, it's kind of like, and I was like you, I never watched YouTube. I didn't watch YouTube videos. Metal detecting was my thing, and I didn't even realize there was so much, other people on YouTube, that posted metal detecting videos and stuff. But I basically wanted to, at that point, well, I'm going to start this channel and I'm going to share, what I do, what I love, and my passion for metal detecting, and that's how it all got started. So anyway, sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, I love that story.
That's an awesome story. Now, and I don't want to get too far off it because I know you guys had some questions for me and stuff, but I got a lot of questions for you guys because I think that, like I said, I'm new to metal detecting, very new compared to you guys. And one of the things that I've always been about, no matter what skill I'm trying to learn, I've always been kind of an immersion training kind of guy where I'll do it till I can't do it wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I spend now, because I work for myself and I can pretty much do what I want, as long as I'm not teaching a class or teaching a course, I'm pretty much free to do whatever I want. So that's when I'm making videos and I'm writing books, things like that. But I'm spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day right now, every single day, with a detector in my hand. And there's a lot of questions that I have that I'm sure people that listen to your podcast have as well, if they're fairly new to detecting, that they would probably like answers to. So if you didn't mind me asking you some of those questions,
ask
away. I think that would be awesome too.
Ask away.
Go for it.
One of the things right now that's got me, the whole Apex, the reason it's got me so utterly, I found a lot of coins with the thing, no question about that. Mm-hmm. And I haven't found very many artifacts yet because I don't think I'm good enough at it yet. I can find coins behind the best of people. I mean, I've got a guy that's been detecting for 15 years that I detect with, and I find coins behind him all the time. Wow. But as far as finding artifacts and things like that, what I get confused on with the Apex, and it may be because it's a multi-frequency detector, but it seems to jump around a lot on me. where
Mm-hmm.
even on a good target, you might have say a silver dime that's reading, read 83, 84, 83 on the AT Pro. That same target on the Apex, it'll read that number if you get right on top of the signal and barely twitch the
Mm-hmm.
detector, you'll get that. But if you move that thing ever so slightly, the numbers can jump 5 or 6. Unlike the AT Pro, where it doesn't hardly jump at all.
Right.
I don't have the Apex. Let me say something real quick. And it could be settings. Now, Gypsy's going to know a lot better than I am. But, you have to learn the characteristics of each detector. I before the show, I told you I have a lot of detectors. I have some that they won't jump 1 or 2 numbers on a coin. And I have others that'll jump 6 or 7. But the more I used it, there's a different tone, a slight different nuance in the tone between a good signal and a bad signal. And Gypsy, I'll turn it over to you. Is there anything, because like when I was walking with you and watching you, it seemed like you were getting really steady numbers. Is it the program he's using or the ground he's in, or what do you think's going on?
Well, there could be a couple things. I think that's one of them, like what you're saying. A difference between the AT Pro and the Apex is, in my opinion, I think that the Apex is a super sensitive machine. I think it's got so much different type of technology in it that's not in the AT Pro. So it is a lot of what Mike just said, getting used to the nuances of the different sounds, getting used to
how far the numbers
tones.
jump. You might get to where it's jumping 5. The nuance of the tone, though, is good. And, junk or unwanted targets are jumping 7 or 8. And you just, what I tell people and what I do, when I get a new detector, I'm a fat guy. I hate going and digging a bunch of junk. I go and dig, and I'll dig 50 pull tabs until I can say that number, that tone, that's a pull tab all day long. There's no way that's gold jewelry because I've dug 50, 100 of them. And just keep digging. And before you dig, watch your numbers. Listen, really, close your eyes and listen for a second. There's detectors out there. You can hear the difference between a clad dime and a silver dime if you're really paying attention to the tone. And that's general. That's not Apex related, but that will help you to just dig. Go dig. Don't sit there and swing all day and say, wow, I wonder if this is a good target or bad target. Do I dig it? Just dig. A lot of people they get used to a detector, and then when they get a new detector, instead of going back to just digging way more than you normally would with a detector, they get lazy. And I'm not saying you're doing that, but what I would say is just dig and listen. You swing over a target, I'll dig iron that I know it's going to be iron, but it gave me a little bit of a high tone, and I want to be 100% sure that's not iron. And you'll start learning the characteristics and the nuances of that detector. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I'm running the thing discriminated about to 40. I've got everything like discriminated out below 40 right now, and I'm running on 0.
Okay. What I would so one of my things is the name of my YouTube channel is called Zero Discrimination, and when I metal detect, I detect in 0 mode, 0 discrimination, and I don't discriminate out anything. And what I'm doing is I am listening to every tone out there. If there's going to be a nail in there, I'm still getting that nail grunt. What happens is each time Mike can probably explain this way better than I can, but anytime you discriminate out any type of metal, what happens is if you're just strictly looking for anything above a 40 number, the problem is some of your 40 targets are going to be your gold.
Right.
So you're automatically going to lose some if there's a gold ring there, and if it's falling in that 40 below pull tab level, even though you might dig 50 pull tabs before you dig that gold ring, you're discriminating out that particular conductivity of that metal, and you're more than likely going to miss that gold ring that's there. Another thing is, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead, Gypsy. I apologize.
No, you go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, when you run discrimination on digital detectors, I rarely do I run any discrimination, because you start confusing the processor. In my opinion, almost every single detector I own, I don't run I don't run discrimination, because it starts, you're given that processor, you're working it more. And what I would say, that detector has iron audio. Turn your iron audio down real low and try running it wide open. Is that how you were running it that day, Gypsy?
Yeah, that's how I was running it the day that you and I know that you and I are more seasoned, and I usually do recommend for someone just starting out and getting used to a metal detector, go ahead and run it with the discrimination up. Run it at 40 just to get used to it.
I think
but that could be another reason that your numbers are jumping a little more than they should. Could be because what happens is that processor, each time it's running over a bunch of signals, and there may be some more metal in with that coin or whatever you're hitting, and so those numbers are going to continue jumping because it can't decide, and it's trying to process out what you've discriminated. And does that make sense? Am I saying that right, Mike?
No, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Try,
makes sense to me.
If you didn't have the iron audio, I would say run some discrimination. Crank that iron audio down to where iron just comes in at a whisper, and run it wide open. And then I would say, if you're having issues after that, reach out to Gypsy, but also make sure you're ground balancing. Also make sure you're cleaning out your coil cover periodically. Make sure you don't get anything in your coil cover that'll throw it off or anything, which absolutely can happen. But make sure you're ground balancing good. And I think you'll see a difference. But I think running iron audio low,
zero all metal.
Yeah, zero all metal. Give that a whirl.
Okay.
And one other thing.
That's pretty close to where I run my AT Pro. I run it in Pro Zero, and I only discriminated to about 25.
He wants to run that about 20, 22 on Pro Zero.
Yeah, I don't even do that. Mine's 0.
Really?
If I'm running my Pro or my Max, but I have the experience to where, in the hours on a detector to where before I get to that point.
Sorry, we have Bill Marsh in chat. Bill Marsh is from Zanesville area, and he's an expert AT Pro guy. I'm asking him right now what he runs his AT Pro at, and we'll get back to you. So I hopefully we answered that. But more questions. I love it. Go ahead, Gypsy.
One other thing I wanted to mention for you, Dave, be sure and always double check those connectors. Sometimes mine get a little loose where your coil connector goes into your LCD, your box. Make sure that isn't gotten a little loose, because sometimes just within traveling to where I'm detecting, those can get a little loose, and that can give you a little bit of jumpiness. But
Now, something I want to say before you ask more, and please do. I don't know if have you done any farm field hunting where old houses and stuff were?
I have.
Okay.
I have. But not as much as I've done existing structures.
I'll tell you what I did in Ohio and had my most success, and something I miss horribly. I would overlay, find where the old houses were, the older the better, off the older map, would compare to newer maps. So, for example,
Yep.
the county I'm from, 1856 map, 1874. I'm going after all the ones at first that were on the 1856 map, gone by the 1874 map. Dig everything that's not iron, and you will be amazed at the relics, the buttons, the coins. Your coin count will go down, silver coins, but man, when you do, that's where you find your Spanish coins. You're going to find your earliest coins in those fields, and I don't know why, but huge success.
How deep are they?
Oh, sometimes I've found large cents laying on top of the ground. They don't plow as much as they used to, but
right.
I'm actually wrapping up a book on this subject. Worked on it actually yesterday, and it's all about field hunting and hunting in the woods and tracking these sites down and everything else. But on top of it, even now they go back and they plow. I know a lot of it's no-till, but they go back every 5 years roughly, and they deep till it again. It's like it's never been hunted in some cases. I have good sites in Ohio that I've left to friends that I came away with cases filled with good relics and coins, and they're going back and doing the same thing off of these sites after they've been plowed.
Wow.
They just keep giving, and that's one of the great things about it. But it's incredible. I mean, the real problem with those sites is the iron. Fighting through the iron to get to the good targets, because you're going to find all the nails and stuff from the house that was there, whatever.
Sure.
But you have a great one for that because that apex has that iron audio. And again, you're going to want to run zero discrimination, iron audio down, and dig everything that repeats it's not iron. And, you're not going to find the modern trash and stuff at those sites.
There's a lot of truth in that, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless it sits along the road or, they didn't tear it down until 1970, you're not, there's going to be none. Unless a farmer dropped something or something, but rarely do I find any trash. But that apex, I think, would probably excel. From what I saw hunting with Gypsy, it would probably do fantastic in that. So
yeah, David, that's what I'm getting used to. I've been taking the apex to test it, and I've got another video coming out. It should be my one that hits again in a few days, where I took it to some of my old sites that I've hunted numerous times with other detectors and other detector brands as well, and other detectors have been there as well. And what I wanted to see if the apex, by using it in multi-frequency, zero discrimination, and turning that iron volume down to either a 1 or a 2, to quieten that iron. You can still hear the iron, but it quietens it down immensely. And so, like what Mike said a while ago, what we're doing with those old home sites where the structure once existed, and then all this little pieces and bits of iron nail and stuff is laying on top of the good stuff, is deeper. And you're trying to pick through that iron and listen for those peaks, those maybe a little bit of high tone or a mid tone that you can, and dig it all. You're digging some iron sometimes, but I've been so surprised. Sometimes I'll find 2 or 3 nails and a really good target or old buckle or something in with those nails. So that apex is really good on that. So that's where the apex is going to excel over a lot of the other machines on the market. And then over the AT Pro, don't get me wrong, it's an excellent machine, and it's a super awesome coin machine. But if you are interested in finding some of those different types of relics besides the coins, that apex is going to excel in that for you.
Okay.
Once you get used to it.
Well, I had planned on what I plan on doing for my own edification, and also probably for YouTube eventually, and for Garrett, because they sent me an apex, was there are a couple sites that I've been over with the AT Pro a couple times, and I was going to go back in there with the apex and see what I find different, or what else I find that I didn't find with the AT Pro.
David, I want to put this.
Great.
I'm sorry. I want to put this out for you, but also our other listeners. Bill Marsh is one of the best you're going to find with an AT Pro. Excuse me. And he runs it in zero mode, Pro Zero, iron disc at 22, iron audio on, sensitivity wide open. Now, of course, that might not always, depending on your ground, that might not work. And he says, get a good ground balance. And that guy has found tons of coins and relics running the AT Pros. So I trust his opinion very much.
What coil is he using on that AT Pro?
Bill, let us know what coil you're using. He's now, I think he's switched over to the dark side and running a Mine Lab, but I bet he still has an AT Pro if I know Bill. He said stock coil.
Stock coil, the bigger one.
The big one, the big double D?
Yeah.
What you
the
run,
double D,
Gypsy?
I prefer the smaller coil, but
especially
yeah, the 5x8, and then I also have the Sniper. I have both of those coils. The Sniper is really good for getting in between the iron like we were talking the old homestead, but that stock coil is going to be really good, like in your fields, like Bill hunts a lot in the fields, like what Mike's talking about, and it helps cover a lot more ground until you get to those iron patches, and you could switch over to a smaller coil.
I've been having a lot of luck with that Sniper coil.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That Sniper coil is amazing. It's a really, I don't think people realize how good that little coil is, but boy,
that thing's been living on my machine for about the last 3 weeks.
I don't blame you. It is one that's hard to take off there.
I got to make a quick correction. Bill is running the AT Max, and he just said running the Nell sharpshooter coil on the Max is a lethal combination.
Well, that's funny because I just ordered that Nell snake coil just to see, because somebody said how awesome that thing was.
Yeah,
it's a good one. I've got that one loaned out right now to a friend that bought an AT Max for me, and it's a really lethal. Yeah, it's an amazing coil as well. So, David, tell us, when you first got into metal detecting, is there a favorite find that just jumped out at you? Something that, or maybe there's a story behind it as well. Something that really excited you. One of your favorite finds that you found that you mind sharing with us?
You know, it's kind of funny because a lot of people, I think, when they get into metal detecting, they find a lot of scrap junk, and then they find a lot of new clad coins and things like that. And it takes time, I think, like anything else, to find the good stuff, unless you get lucky. And I really got lucky the first time I went metal detecting, seriously, because I went to a spot that was an old 4-H camp now. But before, it was actually a highway stop between Columbus and Gallipolis in Ohio, and a place back in the 1920s and 30s where everyone would like stop and picnic and camp and things like that on their way through. So it was like a motorist camp. So
yes.
And so we went through there, and it was kind of an open area next to a creek. So the creek is flooding and piling sand up over the top of stuff all over the place out there anyway, throughout the year. But we were out there for probably 15 minutes, and I found an 1889 Barber dime.
Oh, cool.
And 5 minutes later, I found a V-nickel. 5 minutes later, I found a V-nickel. And those are the two oldest coins that have ever come out of that site, and I've detected it 10 times since then.
Wow.
When you
so
get in,
that was kind of that was what hooked me, to be honest with you. That was what tripped the trigger in my head. Like, this is something I want to do all the time.
Right.
Yeah, that's really
They're
cool.
usually.
We're both
ahead,
so
Mark.
excited, Gypsy. I'm so sorry. I keep. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that usually there's those first few finds that really excite you and get you going, get you, hooked on this hobby. And that potential of finding something like that again or something even better is what keeps, I think all of us going, is that curiosity of what might I find next. And that's what makes the hobby so exciting. So,
yeah,
I like the history of the stuff. I think the history has always been one of my hobbies, one of my passions. And I started out in reenacting history. So that's what got me started in everything that I do is reenacting history. So I think the melody technique is a natural flow into that.
Yeah, I agree. And when you when you actually start finding it, what a cool thing, and that's what draws me to field hunting because there's nothing there anymore, and it's just your relics will go way up, and for me the relics have, even though in most cases we'll never know the story, they have a more of a story to them than just a coin. And don't get me wrong, I love the coins and I love finding them, and I've found a lot over the years, but there's just those relics, man. I don't know. There's something that even though even though we don't know it, they've got more of a story to tell. But, I don't know if you realize how much history is around you in Ohio to be found. It is just incredible. Where I'm from, up in the Dayton area, there are hundreds of houses that are gone that were on the 1850s map that are gone before 1900, before modern electric and plumbing. Per each township, it's nothing to find 100+ sites. And each one of those sites gives up something, and some of them give up huge, something you love in history. I'll tell you a quick story that I think you'll enjoy. Years ago, I did a little book, a kind of a test thing on the county I was from, and it had a lot of sites in it. And I had a customer, I was a metal detector dealer for a number of years, and I had a guy buy a detector from me, and I said, hey, you're from that county, you live in that county, let me give you this book. And he had a friend who's a farmer in that area, and they drove around, and he said, okay, Mike said that there's a house here, a house there, or was a house. And he said, yeah, I know this guy here, let's go talk to him, we'll get you permission, another farmer. And got him permission, and he went out there, and he's finding he's finding stuff from the War of 1812, buttons and that kind of stuff, all the way up to the Civil War. Well, he went to a local historian, and this was a pasture now, just a pasture. And the local historian said, from the stuff you're finding, it had to have been a blockhouse that's lost to history that they mustered there for the War of 1812 from all of the buttons and early coins and stuff. And it's just, a lot of it is research, but a lot of it is just getting to it. You don't know. Nobody would have ever known that. Anybody could have overlaid it and found that there was a house there in 1857 or a structure, but nobody knew it was a block, one of the 12 block houses that are now lost to history in that county. I think there was like 12, and there's only 2 known where they were. And there's just history. Ohio is such a history-rich area. And
no question about that.
Wow, I'll tell you something funny. My phone just made a noise. My brother just said I'm talking too much. He'd rather listen to you. So let's turn it back over to poor Dave. I apologize.
Oh, don't worry about that, man. I'm enjoying getting the education myself.
Well, ask some more questions then. Anything you want.
One of the things that this is really not a question as much as it is, I think it's something that a lot of people ask. I joined a lot of the groups, a lot of the metal detector groups, not long ago, just because I wanted to see what kind of questions people are asking, because it gives you ideas on what kind of videos to shoot. I'm sure Gypsy does the same thing. And so one of the questions I see a lot of people ask, and it leads right into what you were talking about, is, say you find this, this farm that exists now, it's a big pasture, and for a fact there was a building on there at one point in time, whether it was a school, a house, or whatever the case may be, back on the 1875 Sanborn map, and it's not there anymore. How do you secure permission to detect that field? How do you find who owns that field? And that's a question I see more from people than just about anything else, is how do I get permission? And
do you mean
for me, the problem with that is that I haven't really had that problem yet, because almost every person I've ever asked permission has said, yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that for some reason that may not be the case in non-rural areas.
Yeah. I've written articles on this. We've done podcast episodes, and you're going to know this. You don't go to a house in town dressed in your bibs and dirty and stuff like that. Go look decent. Now, when I go out to talk to the farmers, I might be in my bibs that are dirty. You got to know who you're talking to, but just be honest with them and talk to them. I always start out, hi, my name's Mike here. I'm passionate about metal detecting. I was doing research about your property, blah, 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 and just go from there. Hey, I'd really like permission to metal detect. I won't be in your crops. When crops are up, I'm not in there. Next season, I'll come ask again. Farmers, this is another reason I love hunting farm sites where old houses were. I tell this story, and it's so true. I'm telling you, if there's a neighborhood with one crazy person in it that lives there in that neighborhood, I'm going to knock on their door and get permission. And here's my best example. I had a guy following me around. He kept running into me. He was following me so close. After I finished, I wanted to get out of there. He was a little too strange for me. I had to sit around, and he had to tell, he told me how he's been abducted by aliens and they put chips in him, and he showed me a chip and all that stuff. Okay. I've never dealt with any of that with a farmer, and 99% of the time they're like, yeah, I don't care. As long as the crops are out, go have fun. And, that was what kind of drove me at first, but then quickly I learned it's better detecting. For me, in my experience, I've always done better in fields. And I've had people at houses in town that are, yeah, hunt, you can keep it all. And then they want to see the finds and they take them all. And I don't really care. Like I've put stuff together for farmers to give to them that's off of their property. I don't care, but it's just, I don't know. I've ran into some really weird stuff, but just tell them this is your passion. You won't leave holes. Keith Wills, who he's another one that's been doing it for 40 some years. He's a dealer. He's the only guy in the country who works on detectors anymore. He's got a shop doing it. Very knowledgeable guy, said, don't tell him you dig holes, you dig divots. That puts him in mind of a small hole like for golf, and which is true. You shouldn't be digging any bigger than that. I don't know. I don't have trouble getting permission. I would say dress for the occasion. You go out to a farmer and talk to him in a suit and tie, you're probably going to get ran off the farm. You go in a pair of dirty boots and bibs into a nice house in town, you're probably going to get ran off the same. But just be honest with them, tell them you're passionate about it and all that, and it's usually not an issue. Now,
yeah, I haven't ran into too many issues. I just think that's a question that a lot of people ask. I see on a lot of the boards and stuff on Facebook, I see people asking that question: how do I get permission? How do I get permission?
Well,
I think it's a good thing.
I was going to say, yeah. I think a lot of people are scared to ask. It's more that they're scared. You have nothing to lose. Just go do it.
Yeah, nobody's going to shoot at you. That's for sure.
Usually not, but now I would say go with a friend. There's been some, I had a friend. I'll be honest, nothing horrible has ever happened to me. I have a friend who knocked on a house that he said when the guy opened the door, there was a horrible smell. He believes it was a meth house. I had a friend that dogs were let out on him. So you do have to be careful if you're going to go knock alone. Personally, I carry anyhow. But there are some strangers out there. So be careful. I mean, I've only heard of a few incidents, but it happens. I had a friend who had to jump through his window of his car because a dog was after him. The guy let the dog out on him. So,
oh my.
Yeah, you do gotta be careful. I've had people scream and yell at me, but nothing horrible. Mm-hmm.
Dave, Mike knows this. I don't knock doors. Only time I've ever knocked doors is when I someone's with me, and then even then I let them do most of the talking. After they break that initial break the ice, then I can talk. But I'm big chicken, so most of my permissions come by word of mouth, just talking to people that I know and say, I hear, I call it my metal detector radar, property radar. If I hear them say, oh yeah, I just bought 30 acres out until, my radar goes off. Oh, where at? I start asking all those questions. So, I get asked that question a lot as well, but I don't knock doors. So, and I think too, as a female, it's a little more scary sometimes because you never know what you're going to get on the other end. But as for making videos, though, Dave, I really liked your recent video. I think you just put it out where you're explaining about the equipment that you use. You had the two detectors laying on the table out there, and your shovel and your pinpointer and headphones, etc.
I appreciate that. What I try to do with videos with this particular subject, I'm really trying to do exactly what I did with survival and bushcraft in the very beginning. And that's, think about what people want to know when they first start out and then explain that to them. And then take that to the next step. Okay, now I've got this detector. Now what am I going to do with it?
Hey, and Dave, and I think this is a good time because we are getting, we just got the question. How do people find your, your YouTube channel?
They can type my name into YouTube, or they can go to my direct channel, which is Wilderness Outfitters.
Okay. Now, is there anything else, social media, websites, anything else that you want to?
Well, I mean, I didn't really come on the show to toot my own horn, but I mean, I have a website, selfrelianceoutfitters.com.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can type my name into Facebook and find me very easily that way. Same thing, Instagram, it's Pathfinder Survival on Instagram.
Okay, great. Well, you don't have to toot your own horn, but people want to know how to find you. So, we got your link to the YouTube up now. Ryan Bishop posted it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Ryan's a good buddy of mine. Ryan's a good guy.
Is that the guy you hunt with?
No. He's from Missouri. Ryan is.
Oh, Missouri. I got you.
He's a detector freak. I can tell you that. But he's been to my school.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, they got your YouTube posted, so we got that. I know we can't keep you too long. We kind of put you out to do the show, but is there any other?
No
worries. Are we good?
Yeah, don't sweat that, man.
You get tired of us, you just tell us, because we can be, people do get tired of us. It happens. Not Gypsy. No, they get tired of me, is what I should have said.
No, I'm not in a great big. I got a little more time. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Well, so do you have any other questions or anything you want to know?
Man, there's always questions you want to know.
Well, I mean, shoot, we love answering them.
I mean, I think the $50 million question is, how many 55 pull tabs you have to dig before you find a gold ring. But I think that, I see a lot of people, and I think you already kind of answered this, but one of the things that, and I've been guilty of it myself because I get tired of digging can slaw, so I don't dig anything that below 80.
Yeah.
Then I know at least I'm going to find a nail or a coin. But I think that the dig everything or not dig everything is a big question that people have. They're like, I've got this new detector, and I went out and I started hitting numbers, and I'm digging stuff, and all I'm finding is trash. And I think the answer to that is, it's when I first started flint knapping, I use this story a lot. I use this analogy with almost everything from survival, and it really bleeds over into metal detecting, I believe, as well. And when I first wanted to learn how to knap flint and make arrowheads, I approached a gentleman at a knap in Kentucky. And I asked him, I said, can you teach me how to knap arrowheads? He said, no, I can't. Huh. He said, I can show you the technique, but the only thing that can teach you is time and tonnage. Huh. And I think it's time busting rocks and how many tons of rocks you break.
Absolutely.
To learn how to make flint. And it's how much time you put into that detector and how many tons of dirt you dug in holes with.
Right.
To find garbage.
Yeah.
That kind of give you that feeling of, okay, I know when I dig this, it's going to be a silver quarter. I know when I dig this, it's going to be a clad dime.
It's learning.
Or at least I'm pretty damn sure of it.
And I think that leads to something I could tell you, and it'll help if we have some people on tonight or tune in later who are new to the hobby. It's really what you put into it. And in metal detecting, it's not about money. And it's something I love about the hobby. You can buy one good detector, one good shovel, pinpointer's helpful, but not necessary. And you can go out for a few $100s and you can make some great finds. But if you get out once a month for an hour or two, you're not going to do it. It's like the guy who buys a $10 fishing pole, goes out once a month and sits on the bank in the same spot every time and complains he doesn't get any fish. You have to, one big thing I see mistakes made by somebody new to the hobby. They find a spot that they find something good or a few good finds, and then they will keep going back over and over and over and over again, even long after they stopped finding things. Keep moving. There's good targets all over. Put your dues in. You got to understand the people on YouTube, people like Gypsy that's been doing it forever, and some of these other people, they know their detector inside and out, and they go out and they find good stuff every time. You're not going to do that. You got to pay your dues. You got to go hit the park and go. I suggest to anybody, go to a newer park, go dig up all the trash, keep digging, dig. Understand your detector, understand how to dig a hole, understand how to quickly recover that. And when you feel really good about that, now start getting to those better places. People see a seasoned veteran go to an old park and still able to pull stuff out. The chances of you doing that, not you, but somebody new to the hobby, is slim and none. You have to pay your dues first, and you got to learn. But you don't have to put countless hours in. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. A lot of it is research and knocking on doors, but pay your dues, learn that detector first.
Yeah, and I think that's what, Dave, you saying that about the napping and teaching someone. And it's true. It is so true that, like what Mike said, it's a lot about just how many hours and how dedicated. The more hours you have on that machine, the better you're going to get at it, and the more finds you're going to find. But also, one of the biggest things is location. If you're going to a park, you're going to dig a ton of pull tabs. Yeah, you're going to get an occasional ring or occasional coin and occasional this, but you're going to dig a ton of trash. But if you go to the old home site or the old properties, that there hasn't been any modern living there, you're not going to find the pull tabs as much. as much.
Yeah, and then if you, but like there's parks in Columbus, Ohio that are still giving silver. It's been a few years since I've been at them, but one of the last years I was at, one of the last times I was at a city park, I found, I think, 7 silver coins that day. And they're pounded all the time with a lot of different detectorists. But, I'm sure the first time you started trying to make your own, what's it called? What were you talking about?
Oh, arrowheads.
Yeah, making arrowheads. I apologize. I'm
All
all
right.
excited. I'm sure your first one was a hot mess. Probably your first 10 or 20 of them were, I would assume.
I think we're a sandwich, man.
Yeah, so you're not going to go buy a new detector and go to that park and find 6 or 7 silver coins. They were all deep, trash nearby, iron on top of them. They were squeaks because they've been hunted for so long. But you pay your dues, learn that detector, and you're all good. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing, Dave, I'm sure being that you get to go out on a lot of properties and camp and teach survival skills and stuff, that might be even something you could incorporate sometime with some of your training, if someone's interested, is the metal detecting, because some of these remote...
It's funny you brought that up, Gypsy, because that's one of the things. I have a property that I have permission on, and it is a 75-year-old Boy Scout camp. And literally thousands of Boy Scouts there. And you cannot walk 3 feet without digging a coin. And that's the literal absolute
There you go.
truth. That is the absolute truth. You could dig coins there until you're tired of digging holes.
Is it still being used?
It is, but it's not right now because of the COVID thing.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you how to hunt that? You want me to tell you how to find them silver coins there?
I do. In just a minute. Let me finish what I was going to say to Jesse, and I definitely want you to tell me because I've only found 1 silver coin there so far.
Okay.
Anyway, so what we're going to do with that is I talked to Steve at Garrett, and we're going to try to put something together for some kids in September of this year, I think. Depending on whether the scout camp lets us have a group in there in September. And we're going to take like 20 kids out there and teach them how to detect and give them, an introduction to it. And if I can repeat that and do it, a couple, 3, 4 times a year maybe, and incorporate Garrett in that as well, sponsor for the event, I think it'll be a great thing. And you won't have to, last year at the Jamboree, they had to seed the ground with like foreign coins. This place, you don't have to seed anything. There's 700 acres. Yeah.
Oh, wow, 700. That was in your video when you were testing the Apex, wasn't it? Okay, where you found the token and the silver coin, I think.
That thing is loaded with coins.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and if y'all do that, make sure you tell Steve, or I'll tell Steve.
Gypsy says, "Get me there, get me there."
Yeah, I
want to go help with the kiddos.
I'd love to have really experienced detectorists there. I would love that. So now, tell me how to find the silver coins.
Yeah, are you mostly hunting the campsites?
Yeah, we're hunting the areas. Yes.
It's not where the silver's at. The campsites from 50, 75 years ago have changed. Walk out in those woods and you're going to find hot spots where you're going to find 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 silver coins.
Well,
campsites have changed. Campsites have changed. I can almost not everyone. I've hunted 3 and that are still in use, and I've found tons of silver, but not at any of the campsites that are there now. It was out in the woods, nothing that would tell you there was ever a campsite there. And I on one, I went to one time, one day invite, and I found 11 silver. I hunted 6-7 hours before I found my first one, and I found that hot spot, and it was probably less than an hour. I found the rest.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Find those older campsites like that. Hunt where the campsite isn't now. Just hunt out in the woods.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And you'll come across them. I mean, they might be few and far between, but they're out there.
I don't think there's any doubt. There's 13 camps out there right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The 3 that I've hunted.
Dave, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave. I apologize.
I was just going to.
Or whoever.
Go ahead, Gypsy.
I was just going to ask, have you found one of those, those little kerchief things with one of the scout symbols?
I did find one of
those. I love finding those things. They're fun to find, especially the older ones. So.
It's kind of, I think it was black, so it's probably copper, and it rang in the 80s, so like copper.
Yeah, very cool.
Like 80, 81, I think. So it's probably copper.
Very cool.
Probably.
But there's a lot of stuff out. We found a pocket knife out there, and we found flashlights out there, and I found a cross out there. But there's just you can't take 10. I mean, unless you just ignore the dimes. The thing out here is, I found this out from the guy who runs the camp. Everything at the camp store costs something and 90 cents. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it is. And so there are dimes out there. You can't even imagine the dimes. I mean, you can't, seriously, you can't imagine. I'm talking about one clearing of a campsite that's probably only 20 feet across and maybe 40 feet deep, and digging 30 or 40 dimes in 2 hours.
Dang kids, boys sure lose them, don't they?
Oh yeah. I mean, the place is crazy, but that leads itself really well to bring some kids out there who are new to that stuff, and finding pennies and dimes and quarters and nickels everywhere, because they're everywhere out there. They're everywhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea. When you do that, or if you're able to put it together this year, let us know and we'll advertise that for you guys and make sure we get the word out if you need help or anything like that. We have a lot of friends in Ohio, being that I'm from Ohio.
Absolutely.
Bill Marsh already said count him in. Bill's already said he'd love to hunt with you and stuff. If you ever want some help in Ohio, or some, personal one-on-one or anything like that, or group, let me know, because I do know a lot of people, and a lot of really knowledgeable people, and Bill is one of them. He is a very knowledgeable sites, how to research them, detectors, how to use them. Bill is a great guy and somebody I love to hunt with, and we know a lot of people in Ohio.
Well, I would absolutely love that, man. I mean, you can just put it out there. My email is pathfindersurvival@gmail.com, and I am open to any place in Ohio, any education I can get. Like I said, I'm a big fan of what I call immersion training. I'm going to do it till I can't do it wrong.
Right.
So I'm going to go, until I can't do it wrong.
Yeah.
Bill, so that means I want somebody who knows more than I do.
Bill will teach you all about field sites and how to hunt them and all that. He's very good. He's saying his fees are $50 an hour. I don't know if he can afford that, but Bill, if you can afford it, Dave said he'll go with you for $50 an hour. Dave did say that you have to you got to have the sites and the permission though, and take lunch and bring.
Oh
lunch.
My gosh! Does he take payment in plaid?
I'm telling Bill that's your fees to go hunt with him.
Oh, that's my fee.
Yeah. That's your fee. That's Bill's laughing. No, Bill's a great guy, very knowledgeable. He's a jokester. I'm warning you. You'll probably laugh till you pee yourself, possibly, but
There's nothing wrong with that. I like laughing.
I'll tell you, we've only actually, him and I talk all the time and stuff, and he's always in chat. I've only hunted once with Bill, and it's a really funny story. We met up. He lived about 45 minutes an hour from me. He bought a detector from me, and we met halfway. And we met in a town with a park, a real tiny town that I had gotten permission for. Maybe a year before, and they said, yeah, no problem. We allow metal detecting. It's not a big deal. A great place for me to take somebody out. Now, Bill wasn't new to the hobby, but it was somewhere I could test machines, show him how it works and that kind of stuff. And this guy comes riding up on a big tractor, yelling and screaming. I think he jumped off the tractor before it got stopped. Bill and I together, I mean, if you put us in the woods, we look like Sasquatches. I mean, we're big dudes, and we kind of looked at each other like, is this guy really yelling at us, you know? And I didn't know Bill. I just met him, and so we nicely, you know, packed our stuff up and left. But it was kind of embarrassing, you know, to meet a customer there and get that. Well, what had happened was the guy who took over the parks department was an archaeologist, and he was not happy we were there. But, you know, I had secured permission, but I guess I should have gone and made sure I still had permission months later. But
Right.
that's how we met. So, yeah, but Bill's a great guy and all that. But we know other people in Ohio, too. Like, I don't know, Bill's a big, intimidating guy, a little bit scary. No, I'm kidding, Bill. Kidding. Love you, man. But, yep, Dave, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't say anything. I'm good, man. I'm actually taking all of this in like a sponge.
Ah, good. Hey, you have any more questions or anything else that you wondered about?
No, there's a million questions, but one of the things that I think is probably something that a lot of people would want to know is, you know, you're talking about finding targets among targets and being able to distinguish something good from something bad. And so your detector's always jumping around, especially if you get in an area where, like, a lot of times I'll see something where I'll have a 70s tone, and obviously, you know, a 70s number, and that can be anything from a buffalo nickel to a, you know, can slaw, obviously. So how do you discriminate yourself to say, I'm going to dig this or I'm not going to dig this, when that number is jumping between, say, 51 and 58?
Oh, this is a good one. And do you want to answer this, Gypsy, or you want me to take it?
You can take it.
Are you sure?
But I'll tell you right now, Dave, it depends on where I'm detecting, but usually I'll dig it. That's what I'll say. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I would say, you know, we got to be pretty broad because it depends on the detector and all that. But what I would say, although I do love detectors with a VDI, you can only put so much faith in a VDI. One detector that I had that I still love had the best VDI you've ever seen. It would hit a dime, the same number, not jump one number each and every time. 99% of the time, but that 1%, it would do crazy things. And what I would tell people is don't put too much into the VDI. Learn the nuances of the tone. It's so important. You know, the old timers used to go out with single tone detectors, one tone, no VDI, and they could tell you. There's old guys that still do it. They've never updated because they're so good with that old single tone detector. And from the nuances of that single tone, they can call out what they're going to dig. And most of the time, some of them way better than we can with the latest and greatest VDI machines. And that's how critical understanding and listening to the tone is, because you're going to get in, the more you use your detector and understand it and what it's telling you, you're going to hit where the tones are mixed, and it's bad. It's all bad. But, it's iron or it's junk that's giving you two different tones. But then the more you use it, you're going to understand. Now, I'm getting the same, but the nuances are different. I've dug enough of these now to know this is a coin next to iron. This is coin next to can slaw or whatever, a piece of junk. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, learning your detector, putting the time in.
Yeah, and another thing is Dave, a lot of us call this, and you probably already know this, is I call a lot of those when I'm getting it jumping around a lot. I call it an iffy target. It's iffy. You're not certain, it's not hitting pinging on 81 solid, and it's jumping around, and you're like, but it's jumping up to 81, and there might be some other metal in there, or there might be some iron in there that's throwing it off. And it could be a silver dime with a bunch of, in there with something else. If it's hitting that low 40 or 50, then there could be a pull tab sitting right on top of it or something of that nature. So a lot of the times that's where, depending on the situation you're in, because worst case scenario, like Bill just said, it probably is. It could be junk, but I can't even tell you how many times where I'm like, I'm going to dig it anyway, and then it turns out to be a stunning old button, or a really cool relic, or a gold ring. I've had that happen so many times. I'm like, oh shoot, here's another pull tab. And it's hitting right on the pull tab signal, and surprise, surprise, I get a gold ring, and there's nothing like that feeling. So,
okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. And something else I'll add to Bill's comment: don't ever go home. I couldn't tell you when I was new to this, and then I don't remember where it changed, but it's like no more. And you go home and you're tired and you're wore out and you take a shower, you crawl in bed and you're like, ooh, that one signal, should I have dug that? Don't go home doing that. Dig it. It only takes a minute. Dig it. And I'd beat myself up. And finally it was like, no more. Because some of the iffiest targets have been some of my best. And it's why especially when you're talking parks and schools and public places, they're there because other detectorists didn't dig them,
Right.
because they were so iffy. And there's no perfect detector. There's no, all the manufacturers make really good detectors. All the major brands, all the major manufacturers, they all make good detectors. One's better at this than that, and so on and so forth. But they're only going to do so much, and a lot of it is relied on you and learning that detector.
Bill in chat just said he dug a 1880 Morgan dollar that sounded like trash till he popped it out of the plug. Then it was a solid 97 after that, and he said it was like 14 inches down, throwing the signal off. So sometimes there could be, something else throwing that signal off where it's not pinging like a totally, like a 97 until it may sound like junk or trash. Maybe a grunt might even sound like iron.
Now that just brought me to another question I was going to ask. So I'm glad you just said that.
Okay.
So what's your opinion on the number gets very crappy right after you pull the plug? Now what do you do?
So
okay. Oh, go ahead.
Well, Mike may be able to explain this better, but there is a lot of different things. What happens is you probably popped it out of its halo.
I just did a show on this last week. This was last week's show, And I also did a video on it. Yes.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, let Mike explain this, but basically you've disturbed it from its halo. It's been in the ground for X amount of time. That metal seeps out into the soil, and it performs like a halo effect around that target.
Yes, I very much believe in the halo effect. And most
I do
likely,
too.
if you're running discrimination and you start to dig and recheck it and it's gone, 99% of the time it's iron. You broke that halo effect, and it's no longer giving you that high tone, or that it's a good target. If you're running no discrimination and you break that halo and it's now a low tone, it's you broke that halo and it's showing you, oh no, this is iron. And that's most often what that is. Now, I have seen, especially in fields, you break that halo in that softer dirt and stuff, and you keep going and you dig it out, and it's really been in fields. Usually, where you have grass and stuff, it's usually iron in that case. But I've had where I found silver coins and small buttons and stuff. I broke the halo, and I think it has to do something with the ground is softer at those sites. So it's not always a guarantee it's iron, but you've broken the halo effect. And if you're talking a nice manicured yard, I'm going to say 99.9% of the time it was iron.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about,
but,
you're ringing 81, 82, 83, and then you dig the plug, and all of a sudden you scan the plug, there's nothing in there, you scan the hole, and now it's reading 25, 35, 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that happens with bottle caps, sometimes, or a piece of flat tin. Some detectors it'll sound really good. You're hitting in the 80s all of a sudden. But what I've learned, like from using my Max, is it gives a tiny bit different sound. Even though it's given an 80-something signal, it'll give a little bit different sound. And that's what Mike's also talking about, learning those little nuances of the sound. The more you are on that machine and you're hitting like a solid 80-something signal and you're like, oh, that sounds so good. But once you break that, then it sounds like crap. But there's another thing that happens. Sometimes even on the good targets, what'll happen is you've broken that halo. Say there was a silver quarter down there, and you've broken that halo and you disturbed that dirt and you run that coil over there and you're not even getting the signal now. So make sure you get all of that loose dirt out of that hole. I usually just take my pinpointer, grab all that loose dirt, keep it in my hand, and then pinpoint in my hand. Mm-hmm. Or I'll just take my hand and run it over my coil, and if it goes off, it's right there in your hand, and just kind of sift through what's left in your hand. It'll save you a lot of time. But that happens a lot as well.
I have on rare occasion pushed targets down as well with my shovel. Like, it's at 4 inches, you go deeper and you miss let's say a small button, and now it falls to 7 or 8 inches, and you're no longer picking it up. But I will say what you're experiencing is probably 99% of the time you broke the halo on iron. And you'll get that, when all of a sudden it's 20, 25, okay, that's iron. Now, when you do it and now it's a different number, but it's still a high number, you might have just turned a coin on edge or a good relic on edge.
Right. Exactly.
That kind of thing. But when it instantly, I bet if you start watching, you start to dig those, and I bet iron will all of it start coming in roughly in the same area now. You'll get a low tone and a much lower number. But, if it's out of the norm, like, you break the plug and, hey, this dropped down to 60 now, or I'm still getting the high number, but I'm only getting it one direction. That might be you flip something on the side. It fell deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another thing that happens too sometimes, Dave, is when you don't quite pinpoint it just right, and maybe it's kind of on the side, and you're running your coil after you've done, you're not getting a signal, or you're only getting a signal and you just have to widen that plug or something like that. That happens sometimes too, and you're like, oh man, I totally pinpointed or something like that.
I have had that
that'll
happen to me. I've had it, yeah.
Too. Okay.
Okay, so now I got one more question for you.
Yeah, go for it. Love this.
I love picking your brains because you guys know so much. And I think there's a lot of people out there would ask these questions if they had the chance, probably. So this happened to me just last week. I was at a yard of a Victorian home, and I had secured permission to detect the yard. And obviously, when you're in a yard, you're trying not to dig these massive craters in somebody's yard. You're trying to keep their yard fairly nice and replace your plugs and make it look like you haven't been there. And so I ended up, and I've got one of those, I can't remember the brand name, but it's a gray shovel, really, really sharp, big, heavy duty thing. They sell them on Amazon. They're about $75. But anyway, I almost cut a silver spoon in half with it.
Oh, yeah.
If it wouldn't have been silver, I probably would have cut it in half because it bent it in half.
Oh.
And then I ended up getting it out of the ground and straightening it out, and it was fine. But so how do you, I mean, obviously when you're digging a hole in ground that's not real soft, you got to shove that shovel in there pretty hard. And so when you're talking about, coins are one thing because you can pinpoint them pretty well and dig a 4-inch hole, especially with that sniper coil. You know that thing's right underneath the coil. And as long as you dig a 4-inch hole, it's going to be there. But when you're talking about something like a silver spoon that's 5.5, 6 inches long, and you only caught the tail end of it with your pinpointer, then now what? So how do you avoid those things from happening, or can you avoid it?
Gypsy, do you want to take this or me? Why don't you take it first, because we probably both have different opinions.
Okay.
You go first.
Yep. So what I do a lot is if I'm not sure if it doesn't sound sweet and tight like a coin, what you'll find is usually when you get a coin signal, it's much smaller. And if will kind of, well, there you go. Bill already said in the chat here, if you'll kind of wiggle your coil out the way from where you're getting the main sound of your target, just kind of wiggle it out. And maybe I kind of go like an X type and see about if I'm getting a little bit larger, I will make my plug a little wider than what I normally do on a coil. And you'll get, once you get used to it, you'll be able to tell, oh, this is sounding bigger or longer, or and you can kind of figure out how that object, sometimes you can on a spoon, you'll be able to figure out that, oh, this isn't a coin, this is hitting a little longer, as if you wiggle that signal out and see how far that signal comes, and then make your plug a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. Sometimes I cut my plugs in a V shape, and sometimes I cut them in more of a horseshoe shape. Horseshoe shape, especially for your bigger, larger objects, to be able to just, plop that larger horseshoe shape, or even wider than a horseshoe, and then flop that plug over, and then be able to pack it in nice again without even making it look like you were not even there.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I knew that, and I probably got so excited about getting that 85 signal that I just slammed the shovel in the hole.
Yeah.
You know what? I got silver half on the brain. I'm just slamming a shovel in there and get it out of the ground. Yeah. So, but I'm probably not the only person that's ever done that.
And I want to add something to this. That I agree with what Gypsy says 100%. But when I'm in a yard, if I can get away with it, if it's, you do have to be particular in yards, and you want to clean up really good and stuff. But something I learned a long time ago from an old timer. An old timer was watching me, and he goes, Mike, you need to dig bigger plugs. And actually, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not a plug. I always say that.
It's a divot.
Well,
A divot?
it's not even a divot because, I say divot, but I dig a massive plug. But hear me out. Think of a Clydesdale horseshoe about twice,
There you go.
2.5 times longer, but that wide. And here's why. Hear me out. Yeah, but
Keeps more of the roots intact too.
do that in your own yard. Dig it long, fold it over, fold it back. Here's why I do that. Number one, if I'm off any on my pinpointing, I'm not going to have to dig out another plug or mess up the yard. That plug, that big old plug, will go back cleaner and nicer. And with that back attached and it being wider, this old timer said, Mike, I guarantee that grass will never die. Look how clean that is. There's no dirt outside the hole. Stomp it down. Tell me where it was at. You're not going to see it. It looks awful if a homeowner walks up on me digging one of those because they're big, but it goes back beautifully. Much nicer than trying to dig a nice little round hole or a tiny, I think most people in yards are thinking the smaller the better, but they often don't go back together right. You dig a bigger, longer plug, and it'll go back beautifully. And you're not digging out the sides if you pinpoint a little bit, or digging in front or back.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. That all makes sense to me.
Yep. Try it in your own yard once. Dig a regular plug. You're trying to flip it back over, and the dirt's catching, and it's hitting in the front.
Didn't you say you're from Ohio?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah. You ain't digging in my yard. I can guarantee you that.
Why is you living in the woods, aren't you?
Yeah. You ain't digging in my yard. That thing's solid clay.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. No fun. I'm up from the Dayton area. We didn't have clay and stuff. It's real nice soil, but I don't
have that.
Problem where yeah, that's true. Problem where I live, Dave, is it's rocky as heck, and I mean every time you stick your shovel in, so it's very hard here where I live to dig a decent plug as well because of how rocky. So what I'll do sometimes is I put my shovel in and I'll feel I'm hitting a rock. So I try to go back, like Mike said, I'll even make it bigger and just keep going back until I'm kind of around that rock. But it makes it really hard here where I live.
Yeah. Where we live here in Texas is a whole nother story. I'm 6'3", 300 pounds, big fat guy, and I've got Predator tools, sharp, best shovels I've ever used, and I've had literally not hitting a rock, the ground so hard I can't stand and jump up and down on it to get the blade to go in more than an inch or two. So it's a little different here. I mean, we have times a year you just don't you don't dare dig in a park or somebody's yard unless you want to just kill everything, and we don't do that. So
okay. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys answered a lot of questions tonight that I had, and I'm sure it's a lot of questions that a lot of people out there have that haven't been detecting for a long time.
I'm sure.
And I think that's a good thing about a podcast like this.
Yeah, those are
you can hit people.
Yeah, those are great questions, and we may just have to have you on again sometime, and also when you get more time on the Apex and
yeah, absolutely.
And,
we'd love to have you back on.
Love to have you back on. Sorry we kind of went over our time tonight, but
that's okay. I had a good time, and I learned some stuff, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and sorry we talked so much. It was, I think we both got really excited. I don't know if I told you. I called Gypsy to tell her you were coming on the show. I think I was asking her to co-host or something. I don't know, and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm watching one of his videos right now, Mike." She just couldn't believe that you were coming on the show, and she was in the middle of one of your videos, and
I literally was. I was watching your video where you were at the camp there, and you were testing the Apex. That was the first, someone had posted it in the Facebook, the Apex group. And
I
so
found a bucket
I
load of coins at that day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But again, I was in a target-rich environment.
Right.
Right.
That's awesome.
So, and the problem
you did a
I'm
great
having
job.
now, honestly, is I'm having a problem with convincing myself that I need to use the Apex more, because I find stuff so good with that sniper coil on the AT Pro. I'm always afraid I'm going to miss something out of permission. You know, I'm like, I don't get one shot just permission. Do I want to take the Apex and take a chance on being confused on a target, or just want to take the sniper coil in there and know I'm going to hit everything? You know, that's
right.
So that's kind of the.
It's so,
I don't think anybody has that problem too, probably with new detectors and old detectors that they're used to. But I've got to make that transition so that I can, give Garrett a fair shake on the Apex. And so I'm going to go back to some of my older permissions that I've already detected and take the Apex back there and try it there.
There
and see
you
what
go.
happens.
Yeah, it's really hard to switch. Go ahead, Gypsy.
It is very hard to. No, it's true.
Well, when you haven't been
hard to switch.
Yeah, when you haven't been detecting for years and years, and you haven't used a lot of different detectors, it's really hard to put enough faith into a new detector to put down the old one. And my best advice: leave it at home. Leave it at home. I know that's going to be so hard to do. Leave it at home and take the Apex out and make yourself learn it. And I think, what are you laughing at, Gypsy?
No, I mean that's hard for me. I always have a backup machine with me, but
well, yeah, no, it's good to have a backup. But
I agree. I agree. It's so hard not to. The AT Pro now. You're familiar with it. You know the ins and outs because you've been using it the longest. It's so hard to transition to a new machine. But yeah,
but the Apex is so lightweight. It's unbelievable how lightweight that thing is.
It really is.
Have you noticed that? Just see how light that thing is?
Oh man, I love that. I can swing that. I'll be going to the Florida next weekend, and I'm going to be. Usually, when I swing a detector for so long on the beach, by the end of the day, my arm is like jelly, and I'm really looking forward to trying that Apex out on the beach. So I'm really excited about that. So lightweight.
Yeah, that thing is just unbelievably lightweight for sure.
And very fast recovery speed.
Yeah.
Very fast. I mean, that thing works better in iron than a lot of detectors. Most detectors I've ever used. It's impressive.
I'm so impressed with that thing. Oh, just loving it.
Well, I'm going to beat myself up for the next 3 days and just use that thing exclusively to try to get my confidence level up, and to try to some of the tricks that you guys have talked about tonight too as well, and see some of the settings and things like that on there. I'm going to try to run zero discrimination on the turn iron audio down low and turn the sensitivity up high and see what happens.
Dave, if you ever have any questions, reach out to us. Now, Gypsy's going to be the person to go to. I mean, there's nothing that I know that Gypsy doesn't know. I've got different experiences in farm fields and stuff like that. But if you have technical questions, especially about the Apex, I'd reach out to Gypsy. But anytime you have questions and you want my opinion as well or something, please reach out. It's why I write articles. It's why I do the podcast. I love helping people in this hobby, and I learn from it too. I wouldn't want anybody to think, and Gypsy and I are the same. We are constantly learning new things, and you can learn something from somebody brand new in this hobby that didn't that's come into it a little bit different with different ideas and stuff. And that's why we do this. But we aren't experts, but we will help you in any way we can. And that's what we love to do. That's why we do this. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. And we really would like to get you back on the podcast. It's been great. And I loved tonight's show. Asking us questions too was amazing. Loved it.
Awesome. I'll be glad to come back on. No problem.
Oh, good. We'll get you on again. And if you need anybody in Ohio,
I'll let you guys know on that too, for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, and if
All right.
anybody, let us know. We know people in Ohio and people in the community that would love to get out and help you and show you different styles of hunting or different places and that kind of stuff. So,
Awesome. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Dave, it's been wonderful and thank you so much. Why don't you both real quick run through your YouTube and all that again and how people can find you?
Go ahead, Gypsy.
Well, most everybody here knows, unless we've got some new listeners tonight or that'll be listening later, they can find me on Zero Discrimination YouTube channel. You can find my Facebook group, Zero Discrimination, on Facebook. Find me on Instagram. I don't even remember what it's on, but there, Gypsy Jules, I think. And Twitter as well, somewhere under Gypsy Jules. So you start following the metal detecting and you'll find me. So that's where they can find me.
Go ahead, Dave. I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. Like I said, my Instagram is Pathfinder Survival. My website is selfrelianceoutfitters.com. You can find me on Facebook under my name, and you can find me on YouTube under my name as well as Wilderness Outfitters.
Before we go, I got to say I'm sorry. We did have some questions come in earlier that the chat was moving too fast to be, doing the show and answering questions. We're going on an hour 45. We will get Dave back on, and next time I promise we'll answer questions. I hope everybody can live with that. I apologize. I should have put some more time on the, aside, but we'll do that next time. Super. Dave, thank you once again for coming on. It was absolutely a blast. Look forward to doing it again.
No problem. Are you still live?
We are. Thank you all, and you all have a great night.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Dave.
All right, buddy.